The morning sun cast long golden rays across the vast wheat fields of New Busan. Colony Administrator Ji-won Kim stood on the observation deck of the main settlement building. She watched the automated harvesters move slowly through the crops, like gentle giants. Their metal arms swayed back and forth, cutting the grain with perfect precision. New Busan was one of humanity's most successful agricultural colonies. The planet had rich soil and perfect weather for growing food. Families lived in small, comfortable houses scattered between the farming areas. Children played in the streets while their parents worked the land or maintained the machinery. Ji-won smiled as she watched the peaceful scene. The colony had been her home for 15 years. She had seen it grow from a small outpost to a thriving community of 50,000 people. The colonists were farmers, engineers, teachers, and doctors. They were ordinary people who wanted a simple life far from the crowded cities of Earth. The human colonies were known throughout the galaxy for being quiet and harmless. They traded food and minerals with other species but kept mostly to themselves. Their security forces were small and seemed to focus more on helping lost travelers than fighting wars. 300 light-years away on Dokdo Station, Min-ho Lee was having his morning coffee in the asteroid mining facility's cafeteria. The station was built inside a huge space rock, rich with rare metals. Through the large windows, he could see the mining ships coming and going like busy bees around a hive. Min-ho had worked as a mining engineer for 12 years. He loved the work and the people. The station housed 20,000 miners and their families. They had built schools, parks, and even a small lake in the central cavern. It was a good life. The station's defenses consisted of 3 patrol boats and a handful of security guards. Nobody expected trouble in this remote part of space. The asteroid belt was far from any major shipping lanes or military installations. The Hegemony Council chambers on the war world of Krexen Prime. The alien leaders were making plans. The Hegemony was a military alliance of 4 aggressive species. They had conquered dozens of worlds and controlled a large section of the galaxy through fear and violence. General Vrakoth of the Krexen Empire slammed his clawed fist on the metal table. His red eyes glowed with anger as he spoke to the other council members. The humans are spreading too far. Their colonies are getting closer to our territory every year. Soon they will have bases all around our borders. The other generals nodded in agreement. They had been watching human expansion for decades. What worried them was not human military power. The humans seemed weak and defenseless. What worried them was human success. Human colonies were prosperous and happy. They produced vast amounts of food and valuable minerals. Their technology was efficient and clean. Other species began to prefer trading with humans over dealing with the brutal hegemony worlds. "We must act now while they are still weak," said Admiral Zekron of the Void Hunters. "A few quick strikes will send them running back to Earth. Then we can claim their territory for ourselves." The plan was simple and cruel. They would attack 3 human colonies at the same time. The attacks would target civilian areas to maximize fear and casualties. The humans would be so shocked and terrified that they would abandon their other colonies without a fight. Back on New Busan, Chief of Security Na-young Park was reviewing the daily reports in her small office. She had served in the Earth Defense Force for 10 years before coming to the colony. Now she commanded a security team of only 50 people for the entire planet. Her job was mostly dealing with equipment failures and settling disputes between neighbors. Sometimes she helped rescue people lost in the wilderness or provided emergency medical support. It was peaceful work, and she enjoyed it. The security office had basic scanners and communication equipment. There were no heavy weapons or military vehicles. The colonists had never needed them. In 15 years, the most serious incident had been a bar fight that lasted only 5 minutes. Na-young often thought about her military training. She remembered the advanced weapons and tactics she had learned on Earth. But those skills seemed unnecessary in this quiet place. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to be a soldier. On Haven's Rest, the busy trade station orbiting a gas giant, thousands of beings from different species worked together. The station served as a meeting point between human space and the wider galaxy. Cargo ships arrived daily carrying goods from dozens of worlds. The station's commander was a friendly human named Captain Youngsu. He made sure that all visitors were treated with respect regardless of their species. The station had become famous for its fair dealing and peaceful atmosphere. The defense fleet consisted of 2 old cargo ships that had been fitted with light weapons. They were enough to deal with pirates or smugglers, but nothing more. Nobody expected a real military attack on a civilian trade station. As the 3 human settlements went about their normal daily activities, the hegemony fleet was already moving. Warships filled with weapons and soldiers traveled through hyperspace toward their targets. The alien commanders were confident that their surprise attack would be swift and decisive. They had studied human colonies for months. The intelligence reports all said the same thing. Humans were peaceful farmers and traders with minimal defenses. Their military was concentrated around Earth and a few major worlds. The outer colonies were defenseless. What the hegemony did not understand was that humanity's peaceful nature was a choice, not a weakness. For centuries, humans had deliberately chosen to focus on building rather than destroying. They had turned their backs on war to pursue a better way of life. But deep in the human genetic memory lay the instincts of their ancestors, warriors who had once fought savage battles across countless worlds, soldiers who had developed weapons and tactics that could crack planets and shatter fleets. The sleeping dragon was about to be awakened, and when it opened its eyes, the galaxy would tremble. The attack came without warning at exactly 0600 Standard Time across all 3 targets. On New Busan, Ji-won Kim was drinking her morning coffee when the sky lit up with fire. Massive hegemony warships dropped out of hyperspace and began bombing the farming settlements. The wheat fields that had been golden in the sunrise were now burning black under alien weapons. The colonists ran for the emergency shelters built deep underground. Families grabbed their children and rushed through the corridors as explosions shook the earth above them. Ji-won tried to coordinate the evacuation, but the communication systems were being jammed by the attacking fleet. Na-young Park and her small security team fought back with everything they had. Their light weapons could barely scratch the hull of the enemy ships. She watched helplessly as her peaceful world was torn apart by creatures who had come only to kill and destroy. At Dokdo Station, Min-ho Lee felt the asteroid shake as hegemony bombs tore through the mining facility. The beautiful lake in the central cavern cracked and drained away. Emergency lights flashed red as sections of the station lost power and air. Thousands of miners and their families were trapped in the collapsing tunnels. Min-ho worked desperately with the rescue teams to dig people out of the rubble. But the alien ships kept firing, making rescue work almost impossible. Haven's Rest suffered the worst attack of all. The trade station was destroyed completely in the first wave of bombing. Captain Young-soo and most of his crew died at their posts trying to evacuate civilian ships. Thousands of beings from many different species were killed in the crossfire. Emergency beacons from all 3 colonies sent their final messages into space before going silent. The signals traveled through hyperspace toward Earth, carrying news of the devastating surprise attack. When the reports reached Earth Defense Command, a cold silence fell over the operations center. Admiral Hyun-woo Choi stood perfectly still as he read the casualty numbers. 50,000 civilians dead on New Busan, 20,000 missing on Dokdo Station, Haven's Rest completely destroyed with no survivors. The other officers in the room waited for orders. They expected the Admiral to call for emergency council meetings or diplomatic protests. That was how civilized species usually responded to attacks. They would negotiate, make deals, and try to avoid further conflict. Instead, Admiral Choi walked to his private office and opened a sealed vault that had not been touched for over 200 years. Inside was a single red key and a document, marked with the ancient symbol of a dragon. "Activate Protocol Dragon," he said quietly into his secure communicator. Authorization code 779. The dragon awakens. Across human space, hidden bases that most people did not know existed suddenly came to life. Military installations built in secret over centuries began powering up their systems. Ships that had been sleeping in the dark for generations started their engines. The galactic community watched and waited for humanity's response. The hegemony had sent a clear message with their brutal attack. Most species expected the humans to either surrender their remaining colonies or ask for peace talks, Ambassador Xyloth of the Galactic Council prepared a standard diplomatic response. It would express concern about the violence and call for both sides to negotiate. This was how things usually worked when stronger species attacked weaker ones. But the human response was not what anyone expected. Captain Taiho Nam commanded the stealth ship Silent Storm, one of 12 vessels in the Earth Defense Force's most secret squadron. His ship was built with technology that made it nearly invisible to sensors. Most aliens did not even know such ships existed. Within 72 hours of the colony attacks, Captain Nam and his squadron were already deep in hegemony space. They moved like ghosts through the enemy fleet formations, gathering intelligence and preparing for the first strike. The hegemony had built their strategy around controlling space lanes and supply lines. Their warships needed constant resupply of fuel, ammunition, and food to stay in combat. They had never fought an enemy that could strike at their support network. Captain Nam's first target was a massive supply convoy heading to reinforce the fleet that had attacked the human colonies. The convoy consisted of 20 cargo ships protected by 8 military escorts. The hegemony commanders thought they were safe in their own territory. The Silent Storm appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the convoy formation. Before the enemy could react, the human ship fired weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Plasma beams cut through armor like paper. Energy torpedoes exploded with the power of small stars. In less than 10 minutes, the entire convoy was destroyed. The Silent Storm vanished back into stealth mode before enemy reinforcements could arrive. The hegemony search ships found only wreckage and confused radio signals. Similar attacks happened across a dozen star systems. Human stealth. Ships struck supply bases, communication relays, and isolated military outposts. Each attack was swift, precise, and devastating. The aliens began to realize that humans possessed military technology far beyond what they had shown in their peaceful colonies. The first major battle came at the Veil Nebula, where a hegemony battle group was waiting to intercept human merchant ships. The alien fleet consisted of 1 heavy battleship, 4 cruisers, and 12 destroyers. It was enough firepower to conquer most star systems. A single human destroyer called the Thunderbolt dropped out of hyperspace to face them alone. The hegemony admiral laughed when he saw the small human ship approaching his massive fleet. He ordered all ships to open fire and destroy the foolish humans quickly, but the Thunderbolt did not die under the alien weapons. Instead, it activated shield systems that bent energy around the ship like water. The enemy fire passed through empty space while the human vessel remained untouched. Then the Thunderbolt fired back with weapons that defied everything the aliens knew about physics. The shots seemed to ignore shields and armor completely. They struck at the molecular level, causing enemy ships to simply fall apart. One by one, the hegemony vessels were destroyed. The mighty battleship broke in half when a human torpedo turned its metal hull into dust. In 30 minutes, an entire battle group had been reduced to floating debris. The human ship sent a message on all frequencies before jumping back to hyperspace. It was just 3 words, but they carried a promise of terrible revenge. This is beginning. News of the battle spread quickly through both military and civilian channels. The hegemony leaders who had planned the colony attacks as a demonstration of power suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they did not understand. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they felt fear. The news of the Veil Nebula battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In bars and markets on 1,000 worlds, beings gathered around communication screens to watch the recordings. A single human ship had destroyed an entire hegemony battle group without taking any damage. Ambassador Xyloth of the Galactic Council stood in his office staring at the tactical analysis reports. The numbers made no sense. The human weapons had output levels that should have been impossible for a ship that size. Their shields had deflected energy bursts that could crack planets. How? He whispered to himself. How did we miss this? On the research world of New Athens, xenoarchaeologist Minji Han was working late in her laboratory. She had been studying ancient human artifacts for years, trying to understand humanity's past. Most of her colleagues thought it was boring work. Humans seemed to have no interesting military history. But tonight, As news of the human military response reached her, Minji began to see patterns in the old artifacts that she had missed before. The peaceful farming tools had designs that could easily be converted into weapons. The mining equipment used technology that would be perfect for ship armor. She pulled up files that had been stored in the deepest archives, documents that spoke of humanity's ancient past in careful, quiet words. As she read, her hands began to shake. "They are not farmers who learned to fight," she said to her empty lab. "They are warriors who chose to garden." The truth was in the genetic records and archaeological evidence. Humans had once been the most advanced military species in their region of space. They had fought wars that lasted centuries. They had built weapons that could destroy star systems. They had nearly wiped themselves out in their hunger for conquest. But then something remarkable had happened. They had stopped. The survivors had made a collective decision to turn away from war. They had hidden their weapons, destroyed their battle fleets, and dedicated themselves to peaceful pursuits. For over 1,000 years, humanity had kept this promise to themselves. They had explored, farmed, built, and traded. They had genuinely become a peaceful people. But the knowledge and instincts of their warrior ancestors remained locked in their DNA, waiting for the moment when they would be needed again. General Donghyun Ko stood on the command bridge of the massive warship Taegukgi as it emerged from the hidden naval base at Proxima Station. Around him, dozens of other ships were powering up their systems and checking their weapons. This was the second wave of humanity's response. These ships had been built in secret over the past 2 centuries. They were constructed in hidden shipyards, powered by stars that did not appear on any galactic maps. The technology they carried was based on designs that predated humanity's peaceful period. The Taegukgi alone was larger than most space stations. Its weapons could level continents. Its shields could withstand direct hits from supernovas. It carried a crew of 50,000 and enough firepower to fight entire battle fleets single-handed, but it was not alone. Behind it came heavy cruisers, fast destroyers, and massive carriers filled with fighter craft. This was humanity's true military might, hidden for generations but never forgotten. The hegemony homeworlds had never been attacked in their long history of conquest. Their planets were protected by orbital defense platforms and patrol fleets that had never seen real combat. When the human second wave arrived in their star systems, the aliens finally understood the true meaning of fear. The battle for Krexen Prime lasted only 6 hours. The hegemony's mightiest fortress world fell to human weapons that turned matter into energy and bent space around themselves. Defense platforms that had stood for centuries were reduced to scrap metal by torpedo, strikes that ignored shields and armor. General Ko watched from his command chair as enemy ships tried desperately to escape the battle zone. His tactical display showed dozens of red dots fleeing in all directions. Some of them might reach other hegemony worlds with news of humanity's power. That was exactly what he wanted. On the diplomatic station near the galactic core, Envoy Yuna, Shin walked slowly down the long corridor toward the emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered to discuss the human military action. Many of them were terrified. They had watched their surveillance networks as human fleets appeared in systems throughout hegemony space, ships that moved faster than anything in their databases, weapons that violated the known laws of physics, technology that made their own militaries look like children playing with toys. Yuna entered the Great Council chamber where beings from across the galaxy sat in worried silence. Some species that had been considering joining the hegemony's cause were now having serious second thoughts. Others were already preparing offers of friendship and alliance with humanity. Ambassador Xyloth called for order and asked Yuna to present humanity's position. She walked to the center of the chamber and activated the holographic display. Images of the destroyed human colonies appeared above her head. Pictures of dead children and burned homes filled the air. 3 days ago, the hegemony murdered 50,000 innocent people, she said in a voice that carried clearly through the vast chamber. They destroyed our homes, killed our families, and thought we would cower in fear. The images changed to show recordings from the recent battles. Human ships moving like deadly dancers through enemy formations. alien vessels exploding under weapon strikes that seemed to come from nowhere. They were wrong, Yuna continued. We are not the helpless farmers and miners you thought we were. We are the descendants of a warrior race that once ruled the stars. We chose peace because we knew the cost of war. But when you murder our innocent, you leave us no choice. She turned to face the hegemony representatives directly. The alien diplomats shrank back in their seats as her eyes found them. Our demands are simple. Return our surviving people immediately. Pay for the rebuilding of our destroyed colonies. Submit your military leaders for trial as war criminals. Do this, and we will show mercy. The chamber was absolutely silent as she paused. Then her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow seemed louder than shouting. Refuse, and we will show you why our ancestors were feared across 1,000 worlds. We will hunt down every hegemony ship, every military base, every leader who supported this attack. We will not stop until your war machine is broken forever. She deactivated the hologram and walked toward the exit. At the doorway, she turned back one final time. You have 72 hours to decide. Choose wisely. The dragon is awake, and it is hungry for justice. As the chamber doors closed behind her, panic erupted among the hegemony delegates. They finally understood what they had awakened with their unprovoked attack on peaceful human colonies. The sleeping giant was stirring, and its wrath would reshape the galaxy. The 72-hour deadline came and went, without any response from the hegemony leadership. Instead of surrender, they chose pride and defiance. Emperor Vrakoth himself appeared on all communication channels across their territory with a message of total war. We will not bow to these upstart humans, he declared, his red eyes burning with fury. The hegemony has ruled the stars for 1,000 years. We will not be threatened by farmers with stolen technology. Within hours of the Emperor's speech, the largest military mobilization in galactic history began. Every hegemony world contributed ships, weapons, and soldiers to the war effort. Battle fleets that had been scattered across their empire converged on rally points near the human border. But the hegemony did not stop there. They reached out to mercenary fleets, pirate organizations, and even some members of the Galactic Council, who feared human expansion. Credits flowed like water as they hired every available warship in known space. The Zelkan Republic, worried about human technology, secretly provided advanced weapons. The Merchant Guild, afraid of losing their trade, monopolies, supplied intelligence about human shipping routes. Even some neutral species began to wonder if humanity had become too dangerous to ignore. Admiral Hyunwoo Choi watched the enemy build up from his command center on Earth. Intelligence reports showed massive fleets gathering in 3 different sectors. The combined enemy force would number in the thousands of ships, including super dreadnoughts that could crack moons. They want to see our full strength, he said to his staff officers. Very well. Send word to Commander Park. It is time to deploy the Taegukgi. In the hidden shipyards of the Titan Belt, Commander Jinwoo Park stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship. The Taegukgi was not just a ship but a mobile fortress. It stretched 15 kilometers from bow to stern and carried enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. The ship's hull was made from materials that existed in the spaces between atoms. Its engines could fold space around them, allowing near-instantaneous travel across vast distances. Its weapons drew power directly from miniature black holes contained in perfect magnetic bottles. All stations report ready, Commander, said his first officer. The Dragon protocol systems are online and responding normally. Commander Park nodded slowly. He had trained his entire life for this moment, but he still felt the weight of responsibility. The Taegukgi represented the pinnacle of human military science. It was a weapon that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Take us to the rendezvous point, he ordered. It is time to show them what humans are truly capable of. Deep in the research labs beneath Earth's surface, Chief Engineer Eunbi Lim was making final adjustments to humanity's most terrible weapon. The stellar manipulation device was the size of a small building, but its power was beyond imagination. It could reach across space and touch the heart of a star. The calculations are confirmed, she reported to Admiral Choi through secure channels. We can destabilize any star within 50 light years. The process takes approximately 6 hours, from initiation to nova event. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. This weapon represented the ultimate escalation. Once they used it, there would be no going back. The galaxy would know that humans possessed the power to destroy entire solar systems. "Prepare the device, but do not activate it yet," he finally said. "We will give them one more chance to surrender." Captain Chongyunbei piloted his scout ship through the asteroid fields near the main hegemony staging area. His vessel was so small and stealthy that enemy sensors registered it as space debris. From his hiding place, he could watch the massive enemy fleet preparing for battle. What he saw made even his experienced heart skip a beat. Over 3,000 warships had gathered in formation. Massive carriers disgorged clouds of fighter craft. Super heavy battleships charged their main weapons. This was enough firepower to conquer half the galaxy. But Captain Bay also noticed something else. The enemy fleet was spread out over a huge area with gaps in their formation. Their communication systems were struggling to coordinate so many different ship types and command structures. The mercenary vessels did not follow standard hegemony protocols. He transmitted his observations back to human command using quantum-encrypted channels that could not be intercepted. The intelligence would be vital for planning the coming battle. Sapadeo. First engagement happened near the binary star system of Kepler 442. A human patrol group of 12 ships encountered the advance elements of the hegemony fleet. The aliens had over 200 vessels, including 3 heavy battleships. The human commander did not try to run or call for reinforcements. Instead, she activated new weapons that the enemy had never seen before. Temporal torpedoes that struck targets in the past before they could raise shields. Gravity cannons that crushed ships like tin cans by increasing local gravity by 1,000 times. In 20 minutes, the entire enemy advance force was destroyed. Not a single human ship was even damaged. The few surviving alien escape pods carried tales of impossible weapons back to their main fleet. Emperor Vrakoth was furious when he heard the reports. He ordered his entire armada to advance at maximum speed and destroy the human forces through sheer numbers. Pride and anger had replaced tactical thinking in his mind. The final battle began when the hegemony Grand Fleet dropped out of hyperspace in the Ross 154 system. They found the Taguchi waiting for them alone, hanging motionless in space like a sleeping giant. "One ship?" laughed Admiral Zekron from the bridge of his flagship. "They send one ship against our entire armada? Human arrogance knows no bounds." He ordered all vessels to open fire simultaneously. The combined firepower of 3,000 ships lit up the darkness of space with deadly energy. Enough destructive force to vaporize planets struck the lone human vessel. When the light faded, the Taguchi remained untouched. Its shields had not just deflected the attack, but had somehow absorbed the energy and converted it into power for its own systems. Then the human ship began to fight back. Weapons that defied physics tore through the enemy formation like a hurricane. Through paper houses, matter conversion beams turned battleships into clouds of free atoms. Dimensional rifts opened in space, swallowing entire squadrons. Commander Park watched calmly as his ship single-handedly dismantled the largest fleet in galactic history. The Taguchi moved through the enemy formation like a predator among prey, destroying everything in its path. When half the hegemony fleet had been reduced to wreckage, Emperor Vrakoth finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. He tried to order a retreat, but it was too late. The surviving ships scattered in all directions, abandoning their commanders to save themselves. Admiral Choi sent a final message to the fleeing hegemony forces and broadcast it on all frequencies across the galaxy. "You refused our mercy. You chose war over justice. Now witness the true power of the awakened dragon." Engineer Lim activated the stellar manipulation device. 50 light-years away, an old red giant star that had been burning peacefully for billions of years suddenly began to collapse. Within hours, it exploded in a supernova that could be seen from 1,000 worlds. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humanity possessed weapons that could destroy stars. They had the power to end civilizations with the push of a button. The dragon had shown its full wrath, and the universe trembled. The supernova's light reached inhabited worlds across 3 sectors of the galaxy. Beings looked up at their night skies and saw a new star burning where none had existed before. The message was impossible to ignore. Humanity had the power to destroy suns themselves. Within days of the stellar demonstration, surrender messages began flooding human communication networks. Hegemony military commanders abandoned their posts and fled to neutral territory. Entire battle fleets powered down their weapons and requested mercy. The war machine that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries collapsed in less than a week. Emperor Vrakoth was found hiding in a bunker on his homeworld when human forces arrived to accept his surrender. The proud ruler who had declared eternal war against humanity now cowered before Captain Taiho Nam and a squad of human marines. His red eyes had lost their fire and filled with the fear he had once inspired in others. "Please," he whispered, as the humans placed restraint fields around him. "I was only following tradition. The strong have always ruled the weak. This is how the galaxy has always worked." Captain Nam looked down at the fallen emperor with cold eyes. "Then it is time for the galaxy to learn a new way." The trials began 6 months later on the neutral world of Haven Station. Representatives from hundreds of species came to witness justice being served. Che Yong-song, newly appointed as the first human High Commissioner of the Galactic Council, oversaw the proceedings with quiet dignity. She had been chosen for her wisdom and her ability to speak with beings from many different cultures. Before the war, she had served as a diplomat on trade missions throughout known space. Now she carried the weight of rebuilding an entire galactic civilization. The evidence against the hegemony leadership was overwhelming. Not just the attacks on human colonies, but centuries of conquest, slavery, and genocide across dozens of worlds. Species that had been too terrified to speak before now came forward to tell their stories of hegemony brutality. Emperor Vrakoth and his top generals were sentenced to life imprisonment on a harsh world where they would have to work to survive. Their military assets were seized and distributed to the species they had oppressed. The hegemony as a political entity ceased to exist. But justice was only the beginning. High Commissioner Song knew that true peace required more than punishment. It required building something better than what had come before. "Today we create new laws for our galaxy," she announced to the assembled representatives. "No longer will the strong prey upon the weak. No longer will civilian populations suffer for the ambitions of their leaders. We will build a future where all species can live in peace and prosperity." The new Galactic Protection Accords were signed by over 800 species within the first year. Any attack on civilian targets would be met with immediate response from the human defense fleet. Slavery, genocide, and conquest were declared crimes against all sentient life. Humanity took on the role of protector and enforcer, but they did not rule. Each species governed itself according to its own customs and beliefs. The humans provided security and mediation when disputes arose, but they did not impose their will on others. On the rebuilt world of New Busan, Ji-hyun Kim supervised the construction of the new settlements. The planet was more beautiful than ever, with cities that blended seamlessly into the natural landscape. But now defensive platforms orbited overhead, and hidden weapon emplacements protected every major population center. The memorial garden at the center of New Seoul City honored the 50,000 civilians who had died in the hegemony attack. Their names were carved into walls of polished stone that reflected the light of the twin suns. Children played in the gardens while their parents worked the fields, but they would never forget the price of peace. Ji-hyun had been one of the few survivors found in the underground shelters after the attack. She had lost her husband and daughter in the bombing, but had chosen to stay and help rebuild rather than flee to Earth. The work gave her purpose and helped heal the wounds in her heart. "They died believing in a better tomorrow," she said to the families gathered for the memorial dedication. "We honor them by making that tomorrow real." Na-young Park stood on the command deck of the orbital defense station above New Busan. Her small security force had grown into a full military command responsible for protecting dozens of human colonies. She wore the insignia of a general now, but she had never forgotten her roots as a simple colony security chief. The early warning systems showed peaceful merchant traffic moving through the sector. Cargo ships carried food and trade goods between the worlds of many species. The space lanes that had once been hunting grounds for hegemony raiders were now safe for all peaceful travelers. Her tactical display showed the positions of human patrol fleets throughout the region, fast response ships ready to intercept any threat to civilian populations. The Dragon slept lightly now, always ready to wake if evil tried to rise again. On distant worlds, other species watched humanity's actions with a mixture of gratitude and wariness. The humans had proven they could destroy entire star systems, but they used their power to protect rather than conquer. It was a new concept in galactic politics. Some species began to wonder about their own hidden capabilities. The Altarian Republic quietly began upgrading their defense systems. The Centauri Federation started research programs into advanced weapons technology. If humans had hidden their true strength for centuries, what other peaceful species might be keeping similar secrets? A new balance of power emerged across the galaxy, not based on fear and oppression, but on mutual respect and the knowledge that aggressors would face swift justice. Trade flourished between worlds that had never dared to cooperate before. Scientific knowledge was shared freely, advancing all civilizations. The transformation was not instant or perfect. There were still conflicts and disagreements between species. Pirates and raiders still threatened remote systems. But now there was a structure in place to deal with such problems quickly and fairly. Years passed and the galaxy settled into its new reality. Children grew up in a universe where war between civilizations was no longer accepted as normal. The hegemony became a cautionary tale told to remind future generations of the dangers of unchecked aggression. One day, long-range sensors detected signals from beyond the galactic rim. A new species was approaching human space with exploration ships that radiated peaceful intentions. First contact protocols were activated as diplomats prepared to welcome another civilization to the galactic community. The alien captain who emerged from the lead ship was tall and graceful, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. She approached High Commissioner Song with careful respect, her large eyes showing both curiosity and caution. "I am Commander Sylvana of the Ethereal Collective," she said in perfectly translated basic standard. "We have traveled far to meet the species we have heard so much about, the ones who turned war into peace and chose protection over conquest." Commissioner Song smiled warmly and extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship. "Welcome to our galaxy, Commander. We are honored by your visit." The alien commander hesitated for a moment before asking the question that had driven her people across the void between galaxies. "Is it true what we heard in the deep space communications we intercepted? That your species once possessed weapons, capable of destroying stars but chose to use them only to protect the innocent?" "It is true," Commissioner Song replied quietly. "We learned long ago that the greatest strength lies not in the power to destroy, but in choosing when not to use that power." Commander Sylvana nodded slowly, her silver features showing something that might have been relief. "Then perhaps our two peoples have much to discuss. We too carry the burden of ancient weapons and the wisdom to keep them sheathed." As the two leaders walked together toward the diplomatic chambers, the galaxy continued its peaceful rotation around distant stars. The Dragon slept quietly, its dreams filled with growing fields and laughing children, but its eyes remained open, watching over a universe that had learned the difference between strength and cruelty. The age of conquest was over. The age of protection had begun, and in the depths of space, other sleeping giants stirred in their hidden places, waiting for the day when they too might be called upon to defend the light against the darkness.